I'm very happy to welcome today Anita de Beer, who's the director of Pearl. Pearl is the European Federation of Music and Live Performance Organizations. REMA is one of the members of Pearl, actually, and I think you have members all over Europe. So Anita is very aware of questions regarding reopening concert halls and festivals and venues and so on. I've been following some of the Zoom conferences that Anita has been organizing over these past few weeks, and there have been some very interesting speakers and interesting information. So Anita, I'm very happy to welcome you today and that you accepted to be our moderator for today. And so I will give the word to you. Yeah, I'll let you introduce the speakers and tell people how this will go today.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Helena, for introducing me. I have nothing else to add to that. So what I'm very happy about is to talk about the day the live concerts comes back. I think it's a bit, we would never have imagined such theme in our lives, I assume, but the most unexpected things happen on the globe nowadays, and let's consider it as a real challenge and as an opportunity. I've spoken, or I took part in a lot of other meetings, and really in the full lockdown, people were talking about this is a time also of reflection. It allows us to rethink what we took for granted all the time. So I'm very much looking forward to the debate of today. And Helena and the team invited 4 guest speakers for today to help you explore and open the discussion that we could have afterwards. So we have with us, and I'll be happy to introduce them once they are going to present their issues. Libby Percival from the organization Live from London, Jaroslav Till from the Wrocław Baroque Orchestra of the National Forum of Music in Wrocław, Odile Pradem-Voor from the Festival de Saint, and Vigdis Jakobsdottir from the Reykjavik Arts Festival in Iceland. Helena also asked me to introduce the topic by presenting you a couple of things about prevention measures. It's something that we have been looking at with Pearl. We have national federations, and of course one of their roles is to make sure that the audience, that the people working in our organizations can come back in a safe manner. It's our responsibility in society as a citizen, but it's also our responsibility vis-à-vis the audiences, vis-à-vis the people that are working in our organizations. So if you don't mind, I will give you and share my screen and give a short presentation, and I hope to keep in the time. So I need to have my mobile next to me just to keep track of time. So yes, the day the live concert returns, one of the main things that we were thinking and that we were saying to the culture ministers is like, what we are observing is actually that in many countries, the governments are taking different decisions about the reopening. In one country, you can allow 50 people in your audience, in another country, 200. It's based on random, I mean, that's the impression we get, on random criteria. Please talk to each other so that at least there's some coordinated approach, not just for us as organizers, but also for the audiences who are now able to travel again, who want to see performances wherever they will be. And it's quite difficult if you apply different rules. We try to raise that attention, but unfortunately, ministries of culture were not really listening to that. So what we did was we we designed a map, and you can access it from our website. And here you see the example of Spain. So if you click on the country, you will get information about the country's situation. So usually there's different phases on reopening, and it gives you explanation on what the situation is depending on the phase. We get this information from members. So please, if you would see any kind of information which is not up to date anymore, send it to us and we will update the map accordingly. So we really need your help in that as well to keep it up to date. Well, talking about prevention measures, no need to explain what the coronavirus is. We've been bombarded with that information already the past couple of months, and scientific information is always increasing over the time. But it's good to remind us what our role is, because what we need to do is we need to fight the spread of the corona disease. This is our responsibility, like I already said, as a citizen, as an organizer. And to understand how we can fight the spread, it's good to remind us how the disease is spread. So it's quite similar to a flu. You pass it on if you shake hands, or if somebody is coughing or sneezing, the droplets that are released might fall on surfaces or can reach another person within 1 meter of distance. So this is the information that comes from the World Health Organization. So, and in that case, the moment you have been in touch with each other and you then touch your own eyes or nose, you can be contaminated. Just quick reminder to let you know how that works. So we have to take prevention measures. It's of course things that have to be done and that we want to do in order to mitigate the risk. Some of them are of a collective nature and some are applicable to the persons. So how do we minimize that? Well, our first objective is putting in place some control measures, and our second objective is to minimize the exposure to the risk. So we always start first with the collective measures and then look at the individuals. These are guidance that comes from the European Agency for Health and Safety at Work. So they are scrutinized against the World Health Organization's rules and rules of the European Center for Disease Control. So what they say is, and of course these apply to everybody, whatever sector you're in, but I've kind of made some remarks particularly of importance for our sector. So we know that reduce the physical contact, and in some countries it can be just 1 meter, and in other countries it goes up to 2 meters. So you can imagine if you're inviting foreign groups and in their country they're used to only respect 1 meter, and then they come in your country and you say, well, with us you have to respect 2 meters. It will, of course, result in some discussion, but they always have to apply the rules that are happening or that are applicable in your own country. So there's some things that are mentioned there. So you either isolate the workers, which is much easier for people working in the atelier, like developing costumes or props. It's of course much more difficult in the context of an orchestra or music ensemble or a choir. And we know from stories that choirs seem to be quite vulnerable to spreading the disease. The example that is often quoted is from the US. Now, for the customers, in our case, we call them, of course, our audiences, the same thing. Try to encourage them to order their tickets only online, so reduce the physical contact with people buying tickets, manage the entry, so leave them in on one side and let them exit on another side. So these kind of things have to be organized, and I think you've all been doing that already. So looking here at the festival, the Sand, we will hear more of that. A photo of last year. Is that still possible for the current festival? Can people still be together there in that kind of format? Well, we will hear more from Odile for sure. And further, other physical context of physical distancing, things like putting a barrier between workers. Well, it may work in a factory, but it's much more difficult if you think of musicians playing together. I know from in some countries they use screens, but usually it's not a measure that is really liked in the orchestral world. But creating additional space, which always means that it impacts your rehearsal rooms and your concert halls. So you need to go to the bigger places in order to be able to respect the distance. And then if close contact is unavoidable, keep it to less than 50 minutes, which can be of importance when you are having performances in which you have dancers or actors who normally would need to touch each other. And then there are some other things there. You will get the slides to keep in mind. The change in bathroom changing rooms. Maybe consider installing extra facilities there. Especially very, very important, and I think the role of the cleaning people in your organization is one to be kind of highlighted, is that there has to be a lot of cleaning to be done. So as much as possible is recommended, and so do involve them and do involve everybody as well. Let them also take their own responsibility of cleaning themselves. So here, well, we see here a photo of live from London. Can these people sit together as close as here on the photos? According to the measures to be taken, no, they will have to keep distance. So we looked a bit at, in Pearl, what kind of prevention plans are already in place, what kind of protocols. It depends on the country, how it is called, and it depends also on the initiator. For example, in Poland, it's just the Ministry of Culture, but then in Czechia and Denmark, it's the Ministry of Culture, together with the ministry who is responsible for employment and health, and who asks the input of the sector. So it really varies. It can also be the branch associations who take the initiative, or it can be the branch associations who are asked to get the approval, the formal approval by the ministry before they issue the protocols. So there's a big variation, but all in all, it means that they have to follow the rules as they are put into place internationally and nationally. So here we see the Wrocław Baroque Orchestra, of whom we will hear more. They seem to keep a distance. Well done there. Anyway, what we see as recurring themes in these plans is that in general, of course, people are advised to use telework, which is okay for the people doing administrative work. Technical staff, I already mentioned it, try to work in bubbles, in teams, and try to organize the shifts of how they work. Artists and so on, but also ventilation can be quite important. One of the things that is often recommended is outdoor as much as possible. If it is indoor, ventilation, ventilation, ventilation. Open doors and windows at every opportunity you can. If you have air conditioning in your rooms, it must be incoming air, of course, not recycling of the air that is in your venue. And then, of course, also very important and couldn't be said enough is icons, signs, so reminding people what they should do. People easily forget what it is about, so put signs there wherever you can, communicate very closely, involve everybody in the team, and also work very closely also with the audience, give them the trust that you have taken everything into consideration. So I end with the words of the Reykjavik Arts Festival, who you will hear as well, because we like to turn into the positive thinking of how our live concert returns. And like it is put on the website of the Reykjavik Festival, we are surrounded with a myriad of worlds and endless possibilities. It was as if you were already predicting what would happen, and indeed we are very clearly now in a new world with art, technology, science, maybe in another context that we would not have imagined, but here we are. We will have a good and interesting debate, I think. So I'll stop sharing my screen so that we can have a good conversation. And I think we are quite well on the time. So I'm happy to introduce to you now our first speaker, who is Libby Percival. She's actually, I must say, if you go on the website, she's not there, but we know she's a person, the secret person behind a very brand new initiative, Live from London. I was very curious to know how long it existed, and she told me just for 2 weeks. So it's brand new, very interesting to hear about this. Libby is, she runs Percy's music management. She's specialized in career building. She's herself an artist, and she's also in many things involved. Libby, come on, tell us, what have you been doing? The UK is also severely hit by the corona and went in lockdown much later than most of the countries in Europe. So how did you come to that idea to create Live from London?
Well, I was going to ask Adele to show you a film very shortly, just to give you a little bit of information about the festival, but very quickly. The reason we created Live from London is exactly as you say, that the UK is in a very bad way. As a manager, you probably know I look after Ifa Cellini, the vocal group, and I have been doing a lot of work with all of the one to apart vocal groups in the UK and more broadly, to try and cover all of the scientific research that's been doing, find a way that we can illustrate that singing with the appropriate safety measures in place is safe, because there's a lot of fear about it. So first of all, we wanted to offer people live concerts again. Okay, there'll be broadcast, there won't be an audience there, but there haven't been any, certainly in this country, and we felt that was really important. We wanted to create something that was innovative, that had a chance of perhaps being something that could carry on after, and maybe fly a flag for what could be the future. We wanted to encourage people to feel that they should pay for music. It is really important that we protect our artists' rights and our festival and venues' rights. And so we wanted to set up an economic model that was cooperative, that gave as much money to the artists as possible, and with partner organisations, Delma's here, I know, from the National Centre for Early Music, that we create collaborations with venues and festivals, and we offer them a very special trade price so that they get to make some money back themselves from all the losses they suffered. So that was the inspiration, and we spent a long time thinking about it, and then a very short time working extremely hard to put everything together, because it starts on the 1st of August. So Adele, would you mind playing the film? Thank you very much.
Adele, I think you need to switch your microphone on.
Excuse me.
We invite you to a global festival featuring some of the shining stars from the world of a cappella, live online from Wojciecha's Wren Church in London.
Filmed in HD from the Wojciech Centre, live from London celebrates some of the world's finest vocal groups.
The festival will be broadcast live online every Saturday for 10 weeks from the 1st of August to the 3rd of October.
A portion of all tickets sold will be put towards funding for grassroots music education and to addressing topics of diversity, equality, inclusion and accessibility in choral music.
Ticket prices have been structured to benefit artists and promoters alike and to help them cover their COVID-19 losses.
We'd love you to join us for this unique series, live from London.
Thanks, Adele. I'll put in chat the link to the festival so you can watch the film again. I'm sorry about sound. I couldn't work out how to download it and have a better version for you. But as you see, we've got quite a lot of early music groups in there because that is my love, and one orchestra as well, sneaking in there. Obviously, we wanted to make it as broad as possible, but because people can't travel to the UK at the moment, most of the groups are UK based. We're having the Chanticleer based in San Francisco, beamed in from there. The festival, as I said, is set up so that it is broadcast live. It's online. The venue is closed to the general public and only the film crew is in there. The Wojciech Centre we've taken some time to set up, and it's got a 6-camera rig, full audio equipment, and anybody who buys a season ticket will be able to, they can buy a season ticket whenever they like during the festival. They will be able to watch the concerts live and get the chat function and be able to meet people across the world as they're watching. Or they can catch up and watch it whenever they like. They can go backwards as well. And we are going to put up a special super high definition recut, kind of director's cut version of each of the concerts with behind the scenes footage as well, and have that available also behind a paywall from the 4th to the 31st of October. But if you've bought a season ticket, you get everything. And a season ticket is £80 or €90 or $100, or I can't remember what it is in Australian dollars or Japanese yen, but we've tried to be as global as possible with the pricing. And in sterling, it's £8 per household. And actually that is pretty cheap. We can't be cheaper than that, not like the Opera House. We don't get any support or any funding from anywhere else. So we hope this is a really interesting and forward-thinking economic business model that might help people see that they should pay for music, and also just give everybody a bit of joy and hope over the summer as we wait for real live concerts to come back. I think I'm probably out of time, but thank you for listening.
Thank you. You're really well on. I think what you were saying is quite important. You touched upon something that is crucial, I believe, is about paying for even live online offer. We've seen a lot, of course, solidarity happening during the lockdown And of course, a lot of us have been offering their archives. It's a discussion we also had in one of our pro meetings. It's a discussion we definitely should have further. And like you say, in the UK, the funding model is quite different to continental Europe. And obviously, a lot of people in continental Europe have been offering and also doing live streaming for free. But is that not going to bounce back on us is a question that we should ask ourselves. And I think you make a very relevant point there. Are there any immediate burning questions to Libby? I see something in the chat, but I don't know. Otherwise, we go on with the speakers and we have a good debate as it goes on. So it's a warming up, but a very interesting warming up. From the live, we go back, from the online, we go to the live. I'd like to invite Jaroslav Til. He's the artistic director of the Wrocław Baroque Orchestra since 2006. It's based at the National Forum of Music in Wrocław, Poland. And he himself is a cellist. He has a very kind of international career with big international ensembles, also in Germany. And he teaches, so he's a person of many different talents. And I'd like you to tell us, because you started already having some concerts, so you know how this has been going on. So please tell us, and what are your future plans also, learning from the situation we are in? Jaroslav.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I'm very pleased to attend this meeting, and my special thanks goes to Joanna Broniec, who invited me to participate in this panel. As Adela already told, I represent the National Forum of Music in Wrocław, in short NFM, an institution that is a brand new member of REMA. And for those who haven't heard about the NFM, at the beginning I would like to say a few words about the institution. This will help you understand the context of our activities. The NFM is a complex of concert halls with a main hall for about 1,800 seats and 3 smaller chamber halls. At the same time, it's an institution that manages several music ensembles and, apart from the regular concert season, also numerous festivals. The NFM structure includes a symphony orchestra, chamber orchestra playing on modern instruments, a mixed choir, boys choir, several small chambers ensembles, and finally, Wrocław Baroque Orchestra playing on period instruments, of which I am artistic director. I will say a few words about this ensemble later. Taking advantage of the opportunity announced by Polish government at the end of May to gradually reopen live performances, we have organized 3 concerts in recent weeks on 12th, 19th and 20 June. And please let me share experiences from these events and our plans for the future. The main hall of the NFM is a hall of large dimensions, both of the stage and the entire auditorium. This allows us, while following the principles of social distancing, to set up about 50 to 60 players on stage. It's also possible for choirs to participate in concerts. The singers occupy amphitheater seats at the back of the stage. On Friday, 12th June, the concert program featured Vivaldi's masterworks, Magnificat and Four Seasons, performed by our resident ensembles, and the solo parts were sung by choristas and played by concertmasters. A week later, on June 19 and 20, the 2 concerts were held with repeated program, including Beethoven Symphony No. 2. And as our symphony orchestra has 115 members, the musicians were divided into 2 groups, about 55 person each. So actually, 2 different orchestra lineup played the concerts. At the moment, the Polish regulations allow to organize concerts with the participation of the audience filling up to 50% of places in a given venue. We decided to sell slightly fewer seats than allowed, 50%. Exactly 490 tickets were available to keep the right distance between our guests and in all configurations. The audience's reaction is noteworthy. After the concerts were announced, the first online ticket purchase transactions appeared almost immediately on the websites, and fairly large proportions of tickets sold very quickly. So we definitely had a lot of listeners who were waiting for our concerts to resume, but we did not eventually sell out all available tickets, which may mean the audience is very divided in their behavior, from enthusiasm and willingness to participate to caution and distance to the idea of restoring public events. These concerts have become a very important experience, allowing us to rethink the strategy of activities in the coming months. We have considered several criteria when planning the return of more regular concerts in the new season. The first one is the financial forecasts. NFM is subsidized in its core activity from state funds. However, a very important part of our budgets are revenues on ticket sales and commercial venue hire. So far, we have obtained assurance that the government subsidies will be maintained at a constant level in the following months. Although realistically, we should expect economic turbulences for the entire economy, which will certainly not leave the sphere of cultural subsidies unaffected. Our second pillar, the revenues of tickets while maintaining the current restrictions, will probably decrease by 2/3. The third pillar, is commercial venue hire, is uncertain. For now, our partners are postponing the booking of the events for later dates. The second point is the mobility. At the moment, we are not able to assess what travel will look like, especially airplane connections in the coming months. Poland is currently opening borders with individual countries to touristic traffic, but it will be known only after some time whether this does not increase the incidence of COVID infections and whether or not we will need to reintroduce traveling restrictions. The price of airline tickets, buying an extra seat for musical instruments, the obligation to quarantine in different countries are further problems. And the next point is the issue of cancelling already planned events. Between March and the end of June, the NFM had to cancel about 70 major concert events, not to mention hundreds of educational classes for young preschool children. This resulted in a real tsunami of returned tickets. The number reached 20,000. One can easily imagine what turbulence this caused in refunding, especially since the tickets were sold through various internet portals and traditionally paid in cash at ticket offices. Given the above three criteria, we have taken the following steps for the upcoming season. We decided, starting from 1st of July, to announce and launch the sales of concerts only for the September-December period instead of whole season. While we are waiting for the situations to develop, we are ready to announce the rest of the season in September or October. Concerts will be fewer than in previous seasons and will be planned in the most economical way possible, including much smaller numbers of international stars, soloists, and conductors, who are usually the biggest burden on our budgets. We invite soloists and conductors mainly from Poland and close abroad who can reach Wrocław without using airlines. And taking advantage of architecture and space available, we can plan concerts even with vocal and instrumental works of the Baroque and Classical era, whereas the symphony orchestra that is most affected in the choice of the repertoire will be not able to present late romantic works in larger lineups. Because with the current restrictions in our chamber concert halls, we can fit an audience about 100 people. We try to move all concerts, including those typically chamber, to the main hall to be able to sell more tickets. We perform concerts without interruptions, and the audience will not be able to use the cloakrooms and catering facilities. We prepare repertoires for individual concerts in such a way that they correspond strictly to current restrictions and can be carried out even today. We want to minimize the risk of changing programs if one or another soloist or conductor will be not able to come to Wrocław, what can lead again to returning tickets. We assume that if the situation improves, we will change the concert programs, enriching them with additional works, which should be welcomed by the audience. As we do not have any confirmed information about the way schools will operate after the holidays, we are not resuming educational activities at present. At the same time, in all areas where we may have difficulties resuming operations, we plan to have a wider presence in social media and to continue broadcasting events online. However, our priority is to work on rebuilding the audience's presence during live concerts. Now, I would like to add a few words about the situation of Wrocław Baroque Orchestra. The orchestra is a part of the NFM. It's financed by the NFM and has a budget guaranteed for its own series of concerts, about 8 concerts in season. However, unlike the other resident ensembles of the National Forum of Music, like symphony orchestra, choir, etc., these Baroque musicians are not employed full-time on monthly salaries, but operate on the basis of individual contracts as a free profession, similar to the way the entire early music scene works across Europe. This means that my colleagues from the orchestra have been completely deprived of their income in recent months. The orchestra lost almost 40 days of paid work due to cancelled concerts. It is a lot if musicians did not have other income guarantees, especially since Polish legislation does not support free artistic professions to the same extent as, for instance, German law. Several invitations for Wrocław Baroque Orchestra to various festivals and other events were cancelled, and we could do nothing about it. But we could dispose of our budget provided by the NFM for our regular season concerts. In place of concerts cancelled in the spring, we planned recordings at the beginning of September and prepaid musicians some fees, helping them to survive the most difficult time. In addition, the NFM assisted musicians from the Wrocław Baroque Orchestra in applying to various aid programs intended for artists and prepared by the Polish government. Finally, I'm aware that the NFM situation may be completely different from the situations of your institutions. It is the same in Poland. We are the only one concert hall that has decided to resume concert with audience participation in June. We are a large institution supported by substantial public subsidies, and the promotions of early music is one of its core activities. Therefore, we have been able to implement the solutions described above. However, everything that we have done so far and what we are planning for the next 6 months is very risky. Here I would like to mention the case of the National Philharmonic in Warsaw. The orchestra was preparing at the beginning of June to record a video of a concert without an audience. During the rehearsal, it turned out that a family member of one of the musicians was infected with the coronavirus. Therefore, the whole orchestra was quarantined. While everyone was waiting to return to work, one of the administration's employees was infected, and again, all the staff and musicians were sent to quarantine. This story shows that although we are theoretically and practically prepared to perform in the new conditions, there is always a risk of an unforeseen situations. And accepting this fact is the biggest challenge for us and raises the most fears. At the moment here at the NFM, we are aware of this risk, but we are not discouraged. The motivation for us is the enthusiasm of the audience and musicians who, after 3 months of lockdown, could finally meet and experience a live concert in recent weeks. I hope these comments may be an inspiration to you for a long return to normal business. Thank you very much for the kind attention.
Thank you very much, Jaroslav, and thank you for explaining how the situation is. I think what you really pointed out is the element of risk. We will have to live with risk for the coming months, and how do we deal with that, and how do we connect it to the artistic program, the artistic vision that we have in our organizations, and how we find the right balance in being trustful to ourselves, what we want to do, our need also to be international, like you were pointing out, trying to be very careful in booking for an artist, because you want to keep that risk low that they would not be able to come. So all these kind of many elements to be taken into consideration now, as long as we don't know that the virus, or that there will be a medicine, and that trust will come back in society. So this is indeed a challenge you have been taken on and been thinking through very carefully. So I applaud you for that. There are more aspects there. I think we will also have some discussion about mobility aspect, but there I think there will be the combination of the live and the streaming aspect, so reaching out to our audiences abroad and having then, given the circumstances, more the local focus. So speaking of which, I'd like to invite Odile Pradem-Faux from the Festival de Saintes. So she's the director there, and actually very soon, on the 18th of July, the festivals will have live concerts in the Abbey of Saintes, but quite interesting, and I think we were matching here somewhere the middle ground between what we heard from Libby and from Jaroslav. It will be combined with technological devices, people being able to listen also to the concert in other places of the town. It will be broadcasted and streamed. So, and she has also put up some interesting questions in when we were preparing these conversations on, and that I definitely like to hear you more talking about, Odile, about the wealth of offer that is coming now on the table of organizers, and how to get the audiences back. Jaroslav also mentioned it, and the bigger concept about classical music. So Odile, please join us and tell us more about the festival. Where are you, Odile? Yes, you are.
Thank you, Anita, and thank you all. For the Festival de Saintes, we have to decide pretty early that we didn't want to keep the Abbey silent during the July, even if it was very difficult to have any kind of answer about how to deal with the risk of spreading the COVID. So we had to answer 3 questions from the beginning of, or the end of March. It was how to keep a solidarity chain with the musician and the ensemble who were already invited. I must say that in March, when we were in France, we have been confined from the 16th, and the ticketing of the festival was open on the 13th of March. So when the crisis began, we were, I mean, the festival was ready, and we were selling the tickets. So the second question we have to answer was how to preserve the link between audience and musician if the normal concert, the traditional concert, is not possible. And last question, which is not the least, was how to be and how to stay an event able to help touristic activities and to help people to keep on having social life when the confinement was over. So we decided to maintain 9 concerts, which is very little because most of the time during the festival we have between 30 and 35 concerts. So we maintain only 9. Then we have to give up ticketing and think about how to reimburse or what for the people, because by the time we had already half of the seats, I mean half of the ticket sold. So we have to reimburse or to propose to the public to keep the ticket for next year, or even to give us as partnership, I mean, as mecenat, to give us the amount of the ticket. And the last thing we were talking about was how we wanted to focus on the question of how to reach the different audience if we are not able to open the place where the concert's supposed to be, because from the beginning, when we decided to maintain these 9 concerts, it was with the idea that the concert hall was totally available for the musician and only for the musician, and for the technical crew who were in charge of making the films, the videos of each concert. So starting from the question of the different audience, we first decide for the normal audience of the festival. I mean, people coming from all over France or from from a distance quite far from Saint. We decide to try to have help from the national radio and national TV. So luckily for us, France Music agreed to to be in scene for 4 days at the beginning of the festival. So 5 of the concerts will be broadcast by France Musique. Then we unfortunately haven't been able to get the broadcast from Arte or France Télévisions, and only Mezzo will be will be showing 5 of our concerts. So that's the point for national audience. Then the people from Saint and around Saint, we propose, as you say, Anita, that we use a different kind of device. Very easily, we decide to have the concert recording during the day is going to be shown in the evening on a large screen in the garden of the Abbey. We are working with a place for elderly people, and the broadcast concert will be shown in the elderly places, and so on and so on. So we use what we call the new technology to reach different kind of audience. As you say, it's pretty soon. It's going to be in now 15 days. We had to learn different way of working that was not usual way of working, and not only it was quite difficult for us to start a partnership with the Société de Production. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say in English. I mean, with the people in charge of taking the movies of the festival, was not quite easily to start in even 1 month. And now the question we have to deal with when we speak about I'm not totally sure the festival I'm talking about right now is exactly a concert live, because it's quite difficult for the public to not to see, not to share a moment with a musician, and it will be some little time, but some time between music live and the moment where the public will be able to see what's going on inside our abbey. So it's not really concert live for us. And then it's coming the idea and the question, say how to deal after this crisis with too many proposals, because the 24 concert we didn't plan this year are going to be played next year. So what happened for the project we already think about for next year? And I think most of us are going to have the same kind of problem. Too many projects going on next year, and we are not sure at all to have the audience and to have the money, the budget to keep on with all these projects. Then there is also a question raised during this crisis, coming from the USA. Like 2 years ago, we had a a big issue with the question of women, the place of women in music. Here is coming from the state a big issue about what about minorities in classical music? What about minorities composer? And I think it would be difficult for us to find a repertoire. I mean, we don't know a repertoire coming from Africa from the 16th century, and yet a part of our public, I mean, politics who are giving us money are now making this issue. And even if we don't, as I am, even if it's difficult to hear this question, we cannot let them on the side. So
yeah,
it's not yet. I have the feeling that yet the live concert is not already back, and when you will be back, I have the feeling that we have new question and more issue raising. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry if I'm not very positive, but well, I wanted to share this this matter with you.
Yeah. No, I think you're raising important issues there, and gender equality is indeed a topic high on the agenda also in Europe. So I'm not surprised that this question comes also from is it the French Ministry of Culture or something, mm-hmm. because it's one of the big objectives in Europe to increase a better gender balance. And like you say, it's probably a big challenge for you to adhere to it. But you raised many different things. I understood that you really were committed to have a festival, which already is brave in itself. It's much easier to choose, we'll skip this year and we just go on next year as more or less nothing has happened. So you've taken on a big challenge there. But you seem to have found a way out of offering still the audience what they kind of expect, whilst everybody, I'm sure everybody understands, and I'm sure also you have a lot of people coming every year to your festival, so I'm sure they understand what the situation is, and I think audiences or kind of going along and understanding what the issue is, and staying committed to the festivals and to the organizations that they are a big fan of. So yeah, did you want to add something in that? Because we are running a bit behind time, as usual, as it goes. So maybe we'll take the next presentation first, and then we can still have some time for debate. So I'd like to introduce to you now Vigdis Jakobsdottir from the Reykjavik Arts Festival. She's there, the artistic director and the CEO. Her background is in theater and youth theater, even more particular. But now, as this multidisciplinary festival, they are celebrating this year their 50th anniversary. So amazing when you are preparing for probably already a couple of years to have a big event going to happen, and then suddenly this crisis comes to us, and you have to be creative in responding to it. And you immediately said, like, no way, we are not going to let this virus intervene. We want to have the festival going on. So please tell us how you came to that decision and what you have done as an action then.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? I hope so, yes. Yes, just to give you a little bit of context about the festival, we are an international multidisciplinary festival in Reykjavik, Iceland. And geography, if you know your geography, you know that Iceland is in the middle of the North Atlantic. We are far away from everywhere, basically. So, so that in itself is an important context to remember. We are multidisciplinary, so we do all art forms. Basically, as the artistic director of the festival, I have free license to do whatever. I can program whatever I like, really. We collaborate with all the major cultural institutions in Iceland. So this is ranging from National Theatre, City Theatre to Symphony Orchestra, Opera. So we do Wagner, but we also do really small scale experimental work. So it's like we're really the breadth of it. The festival normally runs for about 3 weeks in the summer in June, and it's biannual. So it's only every other year. Yeah, so this is the festival. It's celebrating its 50th anniversary, and it's supported by city and state. So we actually have structural funding to run the festival as it is, a biannual festival. When COVID hit in Europe and in Iceland at the end of February, we were fully programmed. We had contracts and arrangements with all of our artists, international and local. We were working on our catalogue, a 100-page catalogue of all the things that we were going to offer for 37 main events, and then in all about 100 events, counting all the small events as well. We had arrangement with all our venues, with all our partners and sponsors, what have you. So we were in this tricky situation that in the difficult uncertainty that we all faced at the beginning of all of this, especially when we were sort of trusting, oh, maybe we can do the festival in June, even if COVID is in Iceland now, we can probably do it. It'll be over by June. And so we kept on working towards the goal of doing the festival, but really being aware that this might actually become difficult and a challenge, which it of course then became. So by March, it was becoming apparent that we would have to make other arrangements. So, but being in this situation with everything sort of in place, it was really hard, and getting all the from around Europe and in Iceland, we were getting these messages of cancellations of festivals, cancellations of concerts, big scale things being just struck off the map for 2020. And it felt, for me, it felt so devastating, and to be in the position of maybe making that decision for my festival, for this important festival in Iceland. And being so far gone with everything, with all the planning. So I said, I want to do everything possible not to cancel. And I want to, whatever that means, I want to send out the message, we're not cancelled. This might, and we sort of played around with many ideas of how to do this, whether to maybe postpone it and do it in parts maybe over the next year, or to do it, you know, we considered things like going digital, but I had programmed a live performing arts festival with music and stage arts. So I didn't like the idea of having curated something non-digital to make it digital. I don't believe in that. I think then we would have had to start from scratch and really approach it as such. So the idea came to us to launch the full program at the same time as we would have done, which was at the beginning of April. So we used the same date. We launched the full program online with all the information, with what it was going to be. So we actually made these arrangements with all the artists, of course, and our venues and partners, and everybody played along. We said, we're going to launch this program. And then we'll see when we can do it. So it's a festival without dates, basically. That's the basic concept. So we also said, even if this 50th anniversary will take us 50 weeks or more to materialize, we're going to do it. And that's the game plan now. So we actually opened the festival on the 6th of June, which was the set date for the opening. But on that date, we only had like 3 openings of visual arts exhibitions instead of the 13 events that were supposed to happen on that day. The opening ceremony was outdoors with less than 200 guests, which was the maximum at that time. But the weather was beautiful for once in Reykjavik. And so it went really well. And the message has proven to be a real positive one for Icelandic culture and for the artists that we were committed to. And we said, we're going to honor our contracts. We're going to stick to our deal with you. We're going to invite you to this festival, even if it won't be now. So, but what's happening, of course, is that another message we try to send out is when we're all ready. So each event will be presented when we are all ready, the artists, the society, and when we're all ready, and the festival. What I didn't realize when I made this decision was actually how this affects the structure of the festival thematically. Like the curation now carries a completely different meaning. The context is very different. The structure with regard to, for example, staffing and PR is completely different. Of course, I realized this, but actually you realize it like in your head or intellectually, but then when you're in it, it's something else. So we're like constantly faced with new challenges, but because everyone is on board, our artists, our staff, the city and state are really supportive of our decision. And actually, like the Icelandic society is also very supportive. So we have everyone on board, and we're just like going through this step by step, not actually knowing what's behind the corner. We will have new challenges when we come to the point of having to cancel some events. It's now sort of dawning on me that we probably won't be able to materialize the whole program. But the end of June next year is our sort of end date for this festival, because then we need to get to the next one, which is in 22. But yeah, that's more or less our game plan. But there are all of these questions about, is this going to give more depth to the festival, actually? In some ways it is. The new context gives the work, even if it's programmed before COVID, some of the work is really affected by the context, even if it's work that was already ready before COVID hit. Because it's strong artistic work, it actually thrives on a new context, on a new reading. And but then what I miss the most, what I'm having to let go of as an artistic director is I programmed a festival that was supposed to happen in 3 weeks, and it has all of these thematic threads between the events, and it really, some of the work was programmed because I was able to program it side by side with something else, and that in itself had a meaning. Now that has disappeared. So instead of a really tightly knit ball of energy and events, it's actually like a net that's spreading over a longer time. So some of the work loses a little bit of context, but actually it gains something else instead. It gets more attention, it gets more depth and time for itself. Yeah, so those are the main challenges. There's a lot to say. We have our first big concert, because you are a music network, of course. Our first big concert is happening is meant to happen on the 6th and 7th of September, which is Víkingur Ólafsson, that probably some of you know, our wonderful Icelandic pianist, world class, of course. His concert was not sold out, but we had sold a lot of tickets for that concert. It was supposed to be the opening night of the festival. Tickets are really picking, the rest of the tickets are now selling quite fast. People are trusting again in Iceland. The context here is that we're actually quite all right here. We have COVID, but it's really minimal, and really the authorities have tackled this really nicely here. But also we're an island. This is, for once, it's a privilege to be in the middle of the Atlantic, and it's easier to contain, I suppose. So actually we're going to bars. The bars close at 11 at night, which is strange for an Icelander. We're all nighters, but so 11 o'clock is the closing time. But we're enjoying more freedom than many other countries at the moment, and people are starting to trust again. So they're buying tickets, and this is a 1,600 seater that he's performing in our main concert hall in Harpa. And but for now, the maximum is 500. So we're hoping still that by the beginning of September, we will have, they're promising us that they will go up to 2,000 before too long, but actually they've been pushing that now. So we'll have to address that when the time comes, if we're, well, he'll have to do more concerts simply. I think that's going to be the solution. We'll have to find a way. Yeah, I think that's sort of more or less it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Vigdis. I think this is very interesting what you've been touching upon. And indeed, like you say, you've been conceiving a festival which is kind of having its interconnections and the logic of having one program next to each other. And now it gets another context, which is, like you say, it's a challenge in its own, and you have to build a new kind of narrative around it.
Exactly.
And yeah, also to explain that to the audience. But I think it's wonderful that you have decided to keep the festival alive, spread over time, and give the audiences what they were expecting from this 50th anniversary. I would like to go to now, and let's see, like usual, we don't have that much time, so let's leave the floor open now. There's been quite some chats going on, and I haven't been able to read them all. So I think some people are quite eager to jump in and to raise their things. So as an opening question, I would say, what would for you as an immediate reaction be for you the biggest change, the biggest challenge also that you are dealing with now? Is it the audience? Is it the tickets? Is it the foreign guests that you had invited? Is it the mobility? Is it the digital? So the floor is yours. Also, the speakers can, of course, still intervene. Who would like to jump in first? How do we deal with that?
Actually, we have some.
I do help with
Danielle
people
wants to say something.
Okay, please, Danielle.
Hi everybody. So I'm in charge of the Ambronais Festival, which is normally in September, October. So it's not really very good for open air, and we have decided to make a festival, but different. And some main changes are that we have in France, and I think in Europe, Journée européenne du patrimoine. Elena, can you translate this?
Heritage Day, I think.
Yes, European Heritage Days. And generally, we have all the visitors in the abbey at the same moment that we have the concerts, and so they are very frustrated. So we have decided this year that all the concerts in this day are going to mix, well, the visits are going to mix heritage and music, and will be completely gratis, and the audience will turn in different places with different ensembles playing. This is an example. Another example is about the tickets. People are free to choose the tariffs of the tickets. It was normally from 10 to 68 euros, and now they choose between two different possibilities. For the Abbey, it's 10, 20, and 40, and there is no zone where you are placed. So you freely choose the amount of your ticket. And we have another place which is a town hall, and it's 5, 10, and 20 euros, and you choose as well. So in order to have our sponsors still present, we have made special concerts for them, so there is no concurrence between the sponsors and the public. And we had normally an Emerging Plus Festival, emerging European ensembles. So these young ensembles, some of them have members which have been confinated in some other countries, and even not in Europe. As we did not know they could come, we have decided to postpone this special festival in the festival, the Emerging Plus Festival, in spring. So we have more time to see what happens, and we are giving much more new forms of concerts outside. It's a kind of processions outside of the Abbey, and it's free. So we are going to lose, of course, a lot of money with a shortened festival. We are giving actions for free as well in the house for elderly people, for hospitals and so on in the week between the big weekends. And so it's a complete change, but as we manage to have less people on stage than usually, and that the French government helped us a lot for the cancellations, musicians are less on stage, but the other ones are paid for not being there, and some concerts are postponed but still paid, and postponed to the next edition of the festival. Well, this is the way we found, but it's possible because in France we are very well helped by the government for the moment.
I think, Dania, you're touching upon a very important point there as well, is how or the public funds put available by making it even possible to create, to have compensation, or to allow for being the artist to be paid decently, and to provide other opportunities. Like you say, you offer a lot of them or gratis, and you do a lot of also solidarity actions, and somehow the opportunities have to be there, and there have to be some funding for that. And I think you're touching on a very important aspect that we would like to see happening all across Europe, because this is going to be an important period in the next months. How can we continue our sector to survive and avoid that unhappy things would happen with important ensembles or festivals in the world? So who else do we have, Helena or Adele, help me out, who wanted to take floor. Avery Gosfield, I see, raising the hands. Yes.
Norbert as well.
And who else was there?
Norbert.
Yes. I don't know. Do you know the lineup? I'm just seeing hands being waved.
It's easier if you raise your hand in the participants list. You know, you have the option to raise your hand.
Yeah. So Norbert, do you want to say a couple of?
Yeah, I can. Hello, I'm Norbert Rodenkirchen from Cologne. I'm on the board of ZAMUS, which is the Center of Early Music, and I'm also organizing some small concerts. We have been talking here about big festivals most of the time, not always. So maybe it's also a little focus on smaller concerts would also be helpful here. I wanted to add just a little confirmation to Vigdis Jakobsdottir as a confirmation about, you said, establishing trust with the audience. That is something which you managed to do. And I think when I summarize all the talks today, I think this could be an aspect which we could focus a little bit more on, a positive communication of everything which is needed to convince the audience, which is a reduced audience, for a not so short time when we look into the future. I think we will deal with this for the next few months, hopefully only this year, but maybe later also. So what I wanted to say is all the corona-related measurements, which they should be, in my opinion, communicated more positive, not as the necessary evil, but much more as a something which expresses respect for the uneasiness or even the fear of the sometimes older people. And so that it's, and we are artists, or we are dealing with artists, or are artists. So I think we should have some creative powers to be a bit more active in that field, not only thinking about the sales and about how to pay our musicians or how to be paid. I'm a musician too, and I deal with all these things a lot every day in my everyday life, but also to think about how to convince the audience, because they are part of the society, and not all of the society looks at us artists in a overall, not everybody regards us as system relevant. That's the big question. And but our audience, they will want us to survive if we take them by the hand and say, togetherness through distancing and taking care. That's the big challenge in this time, but to define it as togetherness and not as something which is a necessary evil. That's just what I wanted to say as a focus, and everybody had more or less this aspect in their speeches, but I wanted to affirm that this is the main challenge, because you asked for the main challenge. And
yes, indeed. But, yeah, indeed.
You.
And I saw a study from the Netherlands about how is the feeling with audiences in going back well, in general, to go back to culture. And you rightfully point out that the communication to the elderly people in our audience has to be very precise, and the building of trust is very important for them. It's different than communicating to young people, and they were advising communicate differently according to the age groups, also the sex. Women seem to be a bit more cautious than the men, so etc. So I'm glad you bring that up. Albert, did you have a comment to what Norbert was saying? Okay, it was just, so who else was there? You remember Avery Gosfield? Yes, please. You have to unmute yourself. It's still, yeah, now it's good. Oh, we don't hear you. Is your microphone on your computer? Sure. Now it's unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. Yes. No, we don't hear you. It's probably your general microphone settings.
Maybe we try Thomas Hoeft while Avery.
Avery, we try to see if you can find your other, and we let somebody else now first. Thomas, yeah?
Yes, hello from Graz.
Hello.
Yes, we opened our Storiate Festival 2 days ago.
Ah.
Yes, and we are in full run.
Yes.
And made some very important decisions. We rented a big hall suitable for 1,400 people. We now have 250 people as guests in one performance. We split up performances, so we make short concerts, only 1 hour, so that we can play it 3 times a day. So we have at least round about 750, a little bit more or less people on one day, which is economically much better than we thought. It is fantastically sold, and we are really going through the whole month. We postponed the festival only 1 week, started on 1st of July and end now 1 week later. And we are really pleased with our audience, with the artists. Sadly, we have to cancel all staged versions of operas, of things we want to do. This is not possible. It's reduced, it's small, it's simple, but it's there. And this is very, very important. So from our point of view, this is, we are looking in the future very optimistic. And a last point I want to say is, it's same like Norbert. I think we have to see it in a very careful, positive way, but I want to add something. I don't believe that this will be better next year. I think we have to deal with this much longer time, and we have to use our capacities of creativity now to think directly again about new concept forms, new forms of participation, and a new way of our art. It is necessary, not only for the situation, but maybe for the future of arts. So we have to take this in mind and find a way, and we are able to do it all together.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your very positive and optimistic approach. And I think this is what we definitely all should be. We should see it, like you say, as an opportunity to rethink. And I'm afraid you're right. Probably next year will still not be normal if we hear the scientists talking. So I'm going back to Avery, hoping that there is... oh yeah, there you are. So, did you manage to put on your microphone? You're unmuted, so...
No, I think it doesn't work for anybody today.
We have a question from Clemens Birnbaum from Halle. Otherwise,
please, Clemens.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
The main challenge is what we have here in Halle, in Germany. So, of course, we have also split the concerts for 1 hour concert, as Thomas told you, and have 2 concerts in between intermission of 2 hours to make this disinfection and all this kind of things. But anyway, it's for us still an economical risk because we have only 20 to 25% of the seats we can sell. So in our only chamber music hall, what we have at Handel House itself, it is instead of 110 tickets, we can only sell 30 tickets at the moment. And still, when we are doing and split this, it is not the same economical situation for the incomes. So that is still a very, very challenge to go on this. Mm-hmm. So we can do this for the next season, but if this will go on for the future and seeing what will be the supporting by the state, by the city, by the government will be, I think, in Germany going less. And this will make a very, very hard decision than what we can do. So that is a challenge also for the future. The second challenge for Germany especially is, as you told, for Europe. We have different countries and we have different cities. And there's a lot of different regulations. Each county has its own regulation, and now each city has its own regulations and its own interpretations. So, and then explain this with artists coming from far away and say, what happened? We can do it in Vienna or something like this, or in Freiburg in Germany, but you can't, is not allowed to do it in Halle, which is still the same country, the same state. So that is really hard. And then you have to work on it, that's another challenge for us, on new hygienic concepts. Every new interpretation, every new regulation, we still got the last one 2 days ago, we have to work on a new concept to do the concerts. We are very happy about this, that is, the regulations are going lower and lower because the situation is better, especially here in Saxony-Anhalt. But still, it's a lot of work for doing this and to work on this. One of these regulations is very hard, and it's also a big challenge for us, how to work on music with wind and with brass instruments, how to set them on the stages, and especially then for all the voices, respect to London, you are doing with choruses, which is not allowed to make chorus concerts in Germany. And that's hard for a Handel festival. As you may know, there's a lot of oratorios. And still operas can't be performed, especially not Baroque operas like 3 hours operas by Handel. It is not allowed because you have the intermission, you get the cues at the bathrooms and so on. So what can we do with Handel's music in the future? I'm absolutely 100% to Thomas to think about new concepts and new presentation forms, but how to work with this on a composer who wrote absolutely on COVID-19 music. So that is our special challenge. And last but not least, one very special challenge for us, how to explain and convince our politicians that the streaming concert is only a shortly replacement for this year and maybe for next year. But streaming is not the normality for me. It's not the normality for concerts. It is to live, to hear music, to feel music emotionally together with musicians and a lot of people. If this will not work, I do not know what the event is then, what concert will be. I went to concert and sit alone as a satellite between 3 meters of other audiences. There's no atmosphere about this. And I think also a lot of the audience will feel this, which are coming now because it's the only one possibility to do concerts. But will they still go in 3 years as a satellite in one of the concert halls? I'm a little bit anxious about this.
Yeah. But indeed, like you said, one of the big challenges is indeed wind players, chorus. I saw a research done in Denmark about the wind players. We can share that with Rema. Quite interesting to actually proving that unlike what was circulating that it was a big problem for wind players, it has been proven that it isn't that much. So there's at the beginning there were some studies that were circulating which were kind of saying wind players needed what was it, 20 square meters or whatever, and that went around suddenly. And then when we asked about it, it was like, yeah, what was it based on? So all these insights are constantly developing, and we're trying to collect that with Pearl. And Helena, you can access our Dropbox. You're welcome to share it with everybody. So there's also a constant insight and understanding of how to deal with the requirements. Yes, Clemens, you want to react?
We have also this in Germany. So there was in Berlin, there was in Bamberg and in Freiburg.
Charité.
Yes.
Yep.
The point is, we know the results, but it didn't come inside to the politicians, and especially for the insurances, which allows us to make the concerts.
Yes.
It's a problem for us.
Yes, yeah, indeed, I know. There are a lot of aspects there, and I think we need another hour. And my God, how are we coping with the massive reactions we are having? Helena, what do I do with all the, because we are supposed to kind of close.
Yeah.
Can we go on for another 10 minutes? Or you decide.
I don't mind. I suppose we can go on for 10 minutes, and if people have to leave, then you just leave.
Okay.
Albert, do you agree?
I do agree. I wonder if there's questions for our guests, for Libby and Vigdis and for Yaroslav, who've been here talking to us, giving us somewhat different inspiration than just the how we all deal with our practical things, which is important, but looking at the bigger picture, I wonder if people have questions for our guests. Not to shut down any other discussions, of course, but we have these people. Some of them have had to get up really early because they're in a faraway time zone.
Harry Bucock?
Oh, hi. I was wondering, what would you as sort of large festival organizers like to hear from artists or groups? Like, how can we work with you, or how can we pitch work to you that seems exciting or productive in these times?
Okay, who wants to answer that question? Vigdis, would you like to? No?
Yes, it's a very good question. This is a collaborative thing. We need to face this together, organizers, artists, and audiences actually, and funders as well. So I think proactive initiative from artists is as important in all of this as it is from the festival directors. So any new creative ideas, and I think there has been a lot of streaming. We've been watching a lot of streaming. We've been sitting a lot in front of our screens now. I think ideas that break the, new initiatives, ideas that break which has now become the traditional ways of streaming or presenting work. I think that's really useful from whichever direction that comes from. And I think it's not you and us. It's not you and us. It's more, we're in this together. And I think that's the main thing. Well, for me, that's the most important thing, is that we are facing this together as a whole, as humankind. Actually, this is the first time in human history that we share something. We have an experience in common, apart from the seasons changing. Not even everyone has the seasons changing. So we're like, apart from like really strong natural elements, this COVID-19 epidemic means that for the first time, someone in Africa that would randomly be put together, someone from Africa, South America, and Europe, we would all share, we would have stories to tell. And I think artists should look towards that shared reference we have now, and work from that. I think that's a super interesting time we're going to live now. It's going to be difficult, there are going to be challenges, but there's also a lot of opportunity and new ideas to be born from this.
Yeah. It goes in the theme of your festival.
Yeah,
yes.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think what you're really pointing at as well is I think it's in our hearts to be, well, not to think of boundaries and not to think of national boundaries, and whilst we feel often forced now to look at our local artists, which is, I think, also valuable in its own. But to keep our eye open is quite important. So
maybe if I can add, I just had a thought that I think is important, and I should have added before. I think something has changed now. I think we are more prepared now to think more long term, to go deeper, to really go on a journey with an artistic project and allow more time for it and be more flexible with time. I think there is a lot of value in that now. So I think like more long-term, maybe residencies, things that are like where an artist would come and join, you know, would travel, stay somewhere, create work with local artists. I think there is more opportunity now for things like that to be developed.
Yep. Harry, are you happy with that reply? Yes. Okay, so who has a burning question still? Johnny Sells, yeah? Please unmute yourself.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Hi. I have a question for Libby because I think she's been doing looking into the science of things, and she's running a vocal festival as a singer and artistic director of a group with instrumentalists and singers. What's the science now for your singers singing together, even without an audience?
It's very tricky. We're expecting news from the UK government next week, but from a collation of research done in many territories, and there's been quite an interesting piece of research in Basel about aerosol transfer. And this is the thing. I think it's crucial to remember that there are 3 different methods of transfer for the virus. Is droplet transfer, which is the one that everybody knows about, but there's also this aerosol transfer, and as yet there really hasn't been absolutely thorough, robust scientific research into one, what that really means, because if I'm talking to you now, actually I'm exuding aerosol potentially, and they don't know how much virus is carried in that. Whether they think it is carried in it, but they don't know how much, how dangerous, and how long it stays around. And so it is tricky. And the point that people have been making about shortened concerts, it's time in the same space. So, you know, as big a venue as you can get into, thinking about the number of people in that venue and making it, you know, making it work organically together, so you know you've got the distance. One of my very dear friends is group leader at the Crick Institute, and this is his specialism. So I've been listening to him, and he's been analysing all of the scientific research for me, which is very kind of him. But he's an amateur singer, so he knows, you know, from that perspective how important it is. And it is about minimising time together, so keeping short rehearsals, ventilating the room afterwards. We're looking at putting perspex screens in between singers, but that's more actually to reassure audiences, because the point that people have been making about reassuring audiences to get them back into the concert halls is really important, because in reality, perspex screen is not going to help with aerosol transfer. And actually what it gives you is another surface that you must clean because you've then got droplets potentially there. So we've been looking at standing no closer than 2 meters together, maybe even 2.5 meters apart. The other thing that I will say, and we might find this tricky ourselves because the venue we're working with is an old church. It's beautiful Christopher Wren church, and it's hugely, you know, it's high, we can ventilate it, that's fine, but it's not massive. So we've had to look very carefully at the numbers in the building, especially given the technical crew as well, because we've got a big rig. So I think it's just taking the most precautions you can. And my friend said to me, let's face it, you're the lowest risk you could possibly be. If you go to the supermarket, you know, it's going to be worse. And so it's trying to communicate that we are being really, really safe, taking all of the precautions, you know, standing far apart. We're thinking, as I said, 2.5 meters, 2 meters, 2.5 meters, as far as you can get whilst maintaining oral connection, and trying to convey that on camera as being safe. So that, as I said, our only challenge is that we discovered when the BBC were doing some of their kind of televised celebrations, I think around, I think it was the Queen's birthday in June, something like that, they discovered that on camera 2 meters doesn't look 2 meters apart, and audiences felt it was unsafe because even though they were following the safe guidelines, it didn't look like it. So I think that that's when you're streaming concerts as well, is really something to bear in mind. There's what's actually safe, and the perception of what people feel comfortable with as well. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. Well, I think it's 12:15, so this has been running for a bit longer than foreseen, but it's such a rich debate and such a rich theme that you have put on the agenda for the REMA conference. And I think we need a couple of more sessions to go in more depth, but already this has been quite and very enriching already with the choice of the speakers who have brought in various elements of bringing the concert back live, whether we do it live via our screens or we do it live with physical audiences. We know there are many challenges in terms of following the precaution measures and the regulations that are imposed on us. But we also know that we need to build the confidence back with our audience, which are at the heart of what we do. And communication will be the key for us in the coming days, weeks, months, and building that confidence and bringing them back in is indeed the relation and the key for our success. And obviously the whole area of programming is going to be one of the issues that we will all explore in future. Programming and our artistic visions will be challenged again. These create new opportunities, and I think the next decade will be a new decade. And no matter what has happened, and I'm sorry for those people who have been experiencing it closely in their families, no matter how, we will come to a new reality. Pandemics will still come we are told. So we will need also to think always of plan Bs in whatever circumstances we are in. So times will not be easy for none of us. But what I'm also thinking of is indeed how are we going to cooperate together. The togetherness is going to be very important, and a network like REMA is definitely doing that. So I would like to thank Helena and Albert and Adele for having me here and being welcomed. And I'd like to give the final word to Albert and Helena.
Thank you very much, Anita. I'll just say a few very quick words to conclude the session. As I said earlier, it's the last session we have before the summer break. We're planning to have a few more in the autumn. If you have any, well, we have a lot of ideas about the themes that we would like to discuss with you, but if you have ideas yourself, feel free to send us an email. A quick thank you to Adele, who's been organizing these sessions very actively, and to Albert, who has been very present in this period, and also our executive board, and especially Richard and Joanna, who are here as well and who've been doing work behind the scene. One more thing, we have our European Early Music Summit, which is planned from 20 to 22nd November in Brussels, which we very much hope we will be able to organize physically live. We're also thinking about digital options in any case. We were planning to open registrations in March, and well, we had to change our plans, and now we have decided to open pre-registrations. So have a look at the website. The website is earlymusic.eu. Yeah, have a look, pre-register if you're interested in coming. We don't know yet how many people we will be allowed to have there, so that's why we only have pre-registrations for now. And the question about will the summit also be online, it really depends how the situation goes. We're looking at options either to have it physically with streamings or well, if there's a second wave of coronavirus, we might have to go fully online, but that we don't know yet.